Marcus Ellery had barely set his leather folder on the first-class seat when a sharp voice cut the air. "Move! You're in the wrong section." He turned just as Richard Cavendish, white suit, white grin, white entitlement, dropped into Marcus's assigned seat without waiting for a response. Overhead lights flickered softly, the cabin humming as the boarding door alarm chimed. "Jet bridge will close in 5 minutes." "I believe that's my seat," Marcus said, calm but firm. Richard didn't look at the boarding pass in Marcus's hand. "No chance you paid for this. Probably a lucky upgrade. Don't make this awkward." Ava Rios, camera half raised near the aisle, whispered to her tiny live stream, "This doesn't look right." Marcus steadied his breath. The corner of his equity partner card glinted through the folder's sleeve unnoticed, unacknowledged, while Richard stretched out, claiming space that wasn't his. The injustice settled into the cabin like pressure before a storm. Have you ever witnessed an injustice so clear it made your chest tighten before you could even speak? Before we go deeper into this story, tell me, where in the world are you listening from tonight? And if stories about power, dignity, and truth resonate with you, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. All right, take a breath. Let's step back into the cabin, right where everything was about to escalate next. The aisle trembled slightly as passengers continued filing in, the low murmur of settling luggage mixing with the soft hiss of the air system. Marcus stood beside his seat, boarding pass still extended in a poised, almost diplomatic angle. Richard didn't glance at it. He was already reclining, claiming posture, claiming presence, claiming power. Gate agent Linda stepped into the cabin with her tablet held like a badge of soft authority. "What seems to be the issue?" she asked, tone polite, but already bracing toward Richard, as if pulled by an unspoken gravitational rule. The wealthier-looking man must be the one telling the truth. Richard spoke first. Of course he did. "He's mixed up," Richard said smoothly, running a hand across the armrest as if polishing what he had seized. "I've already handled this at the lounge. They confirmed the seat was mine. Some kind of upgrade confusion." The phrasing was deliberate. Handled, confirmed, confusion. A narrative pre-built to make Marcus immediately sound like the anomaly. Marcus held out the boarding pass again. "This is my assigned seat." Linda nodded, but only halfway. One of those nods meant to acknowledge noise, not meaning. "Sir," she said to Marcus, "sometimes the system issues last-minute upgrades. Let me just—" "It's not an upgrade," Marcus said gently. The calmness in his voice wasn't passivity. It was practiced discipline. He had learned decades ago that anger, especially from a black man, was interpreted as confirmation of guilt. So he spoke like a surgeon holding a scalpel, quiet, precise, unwilling to tremble. A flicker of gold caught the cabin light as he lifted his wallet. The edge of his equity partner card slipped into view, just a sliver, a whisper of authority. Linda didn't notice. Richard pretended not to. "Look," Richard said, gesturing lazily with 2 fingers. "I don't want to hold up the flight. If he was moved here by mistake, put him back where he came from. No harm done." Linda bit her lip, torn between procedure and the social cues Richard radiated. He was dressed like someone who could cause trouble for her on LinkedIn. Marcus, on the other hand, dressed with understated class, quiet wealth, the kind that doesn't signal itself loudly enough for certain gatekeepers. Ava Rios drifted a few steps closer, camera lowered but still rolling for her tiny audience of a few hundred. "Guys, this is strange," she whispered into the mic. "She's not actually checking his boarding pass. She's just listening to the billionaire dude." Her chat flashed with confused emojis and short murmurs. "What's happening? Why is she taking his word?" "Check the pass." Linda typed quickly on her tablet. Marcus watched her brows tighten, then loosen, then tighten again. Data was on the screen. Facts were right there. Yet her eyes drifted repeatedly toward Richard, as if waiting for his approval. "I'm not trying to cause a scene," Marcus said, voice steady. "Just confirm the seat assignment." Richard scoffed. If it walks like an upgrade and talks like an upgrade, how exactly does an upgrade talk? Marcus asked. The question wasn't sharp, merely inquisitive. But somehow, that made it worse for Richard. He turned the mirror back on him. He clicked his tongue. Linda stepped between them. "Let me check one more thing." She tapped again, searching for some procedural path that wouldn't require challenging Richard. She was clearly anxious about delaying the flight. The cabin's ambient chime had already repeated its soft reminder that boarding was closing soon. From the aisle, Ava captured the moment, Linda looking at Richard for validation, Richard lounging as if he'd bought the entire plane, Marcus holding his boarding pass like a truth no one wanted to read. Her voice, now slightly louder for her stream. "He's being polite. He's asking for verification. Why is this so hard?" A passenger behind them muttered, "Just let the rich guy sit. Who cares?" Another replied, "Because it's someone else's seat. That's why." The tension crackled the social kind. Invisible, but heavy enough to shift body language in a row of seats. Marcus adjusted his folder against his side. The glossy tab of the financial report poked out another silent artifact of who he truly was. But it remained unnoticed. The same way a lighthouse's beam is meaningless to someone determined to keep their eyes shut. Linda exhaled. "Sir," she said to Marcus again, "the system sometimes reassigns." "May I see what the system says about this seat?" Marcus asked, "instead of what someone assumes about it?" The sentence was quiet enough to slip under most people's anger radar, but sharp enough to redirect attention. A couple of passengers turned. Richard cracked his knuckles. "We're wasting time." "It won't take long," Marcus replied. Linda hesitated. The moment was suspended. Crew pressure, time pressure, wealth pressure, racial perception, her own discomfort, all the invisible biases shaping the cabin's oxygen. Ava's stream hit 1,200 viewers. Her voice dropped to a narrational hush. "He's so measured, and they're treating him like he's the inconvenience. And what people stare. And did read 1,000. The hum of the plane deepened as the air vents shifted. A rattle of a closing overhead bin punctuated the silence. Linda swallowed. "I'll check with the lead attendant," she said, stepping back. Richard folded his arms triumphantly. Marcus stayed still, breath anchored, posture open, dignity unshaken. The cabin's temperature felt a degree cooler as lead flight attendant Marcus Hale stepped into the aisle. Tall, pressed uniform, an air of managerial authority smoothing the edges of his voice. People instinctively shifted aside to make room for him, as if authority had a scent they recognized from childhood. "What seems to be the holdup?" he asked, eyes moving between Linda and Richard, not Marcus. Linda exhaled in relief, almost hiding behind her tablet. "Seat dispute. Passenger claims this is his assigned seat." Richard pointed a relaxed thumb at Marcus, as if directing attention to a minor inconvenience. "He's confused. Lounge team told me I had this seat. Must be an upgrade mix-up. The phrase must be landed like a verdict." Marcus nodded once, then turned to Marcus with a calm, practiced smile. "Sir, we're securing the cabin in 3 minutes. We need cooperation, so we can push back on time." A soft chime floated overhead, another procedural reminder. "Cabin crew, finalize secure check. 3 minutes to door closure." Marcus didn't move. "I'm cooperating. This is my seat." Richard sighed loudly enough. Performance for nearby passengers. "Be a good man and step aside so we don't delay the flight." The words hung in the air like an invisible collar snapping shut. Be a good man. Step aside. A gendered strip of condescension cut into the moment, fitting neatly atop the earlier class bias like another layer of lacquer. Marcus lifted both palms, as if soothing a child. "Let's not get emotional, sir." A tiny flicker crossed Marcus's eyes, not rage, but recognition. This was the moment every black executive knows too well, the instant where staying composed becomes proof of innocence, and any hint of frustration becomes evidence against you. "I'm not emotional," Marcus replied. "I'm asking that you verify the seat assignment." Ava's live stream ticked upward, 3K, 4K, now 5K. Her audience was exploding. She whispered into her mic, "Did he really just tell him not to get emotional? The guy has barely raised his voice." Her chat lit up. "Crew is siding with the billionaire. Check. The pass. This is discrimination, OMG." Richard's smirk grew as he stretched his legs under the seat, Marcus's seat. "Look," he said, voice coated in magnanimous insult, "I get that upgrades feel exciting, but first class isn't just about availability, you know? There's decorum." Marcus looked at him, not with anger, but with an exhausted kind of clarity. "I didn't get an upgrade." The plane vibrated slightly as baggage was loaded beneath them, a low mechanical rumble traveling through the floorboards. Someone shut an overhead bin, the latch clicking with finality. Marcus extended a hand for the boarding pass, but the gesture felt symbolic more than genuine, like someone asking for proof they had already decided to dismiss. Marcus gave it to him anyway. Marcus glanced at it. A glance. No more. Barely a second. "Sir," he said, "I understand you're frustrated, but we need to keep things moving. I want to 7 Dad, and Brivey, and Wilhees, on the mender, when 7 Dad use and made, and crewfected 25, with crewfected. Wilhees amon." "You didn't actually read it," Marcus said softly. The softness made it undeniable. A few passengers turned their heads. Quiet tension, spreading like a slow leak. Marcus shifted his folder under his arm, and with the movement, the glossy edge of the financial report slid halfway out. A chart title peeked from the page. Quarterly Strategic Investment Overview. Not a document a random passenger would carry. But no one looked. The truth lived in plain sight, yet remained treated like decorative clutter. Another power cascade note. Authority invisible until convenient. Marcus handed the boarding pass back. "We'll resolve it after takeoff if needed." Richard laughed. "See? Procedure." Ava's voice rose a little. "After takeoff? That's insane. He paid for the seat he's standing beside. Why is this even a debate?" Viewers spammed the chat. "This is messed up. Crew ignoring evidence. Check the manifest now." Linda stepped closer to Marcus, murmuring in his ear. Bits of her whisper drifted toward Marcus. "Billionaire donor. PR risk. Just move him for now." Marcus inhaled, slow, grounded, practiced. A breath not of surrender, but of survival. Then he said quietly, "I'm not moving." Richard sat up straighter. "Excuse me?" Marcus met his eyes. "I'm not moving from the seat assigned to me." The calmness was sharper than anger, sharper than any blade Richard had expected. Passengers shifted. A few phones angled discreetly. Ava's live stream rocketed to 6K. Marcus tried again. "Sir, please, you're making this difficult." Marcus replied, "No, I'm asking you to do your job." It was the gentlest condemnation imaginable, and the entire cabin felt it. The pressure coiled tight, injustice deepening, and the countdown ticking toward collapse. Marcus standing firm, Richard growing uneasy, and the witnesses multiplying like storm clouds gathering above a city about to break. The cabin felt narrower now, as if the oxygen had thinned around Marcus. Conversations buzzed along the aisles, a low-frequency undertone of discomfort. People were watching without wanting to be seen, watching head tilts, sideways glances, the silent choreography of public judgment. Linda lingered near the bulkhead, tapping her tablet as if hoping the screen might magically deliver a solution that didn't involve confronting Richard. Her fingers trembled slightly, Not out of fear, but urgency. An urgency Marcus recognized from every business class cabin, every corporate boardroom, every hallway where staff were trained to defer upward. Richard reclined further, eyes half-lidded, confident enough to look bored. "We really shouldn't drag this out," he said, performing exasperation. "Flights depend on timing." Marcus didn't respond. He inhaled, slow and controlled, letting the breath settle behind his ribs, a microsecond of inner space, a survival habit he had honed over decades. Not calmness, regulation. The overhead lights dimmed for a moment as the crew secured final baggage compartments. The click of a bin latch resonated like a judge's gavel. Ava edged closer, her camera angled discreetly at hip level. Her stream was up to almost 12K viewers now, people typing furiously. "Let the man sit. Why is the billionaire deciding airline rules? This crew is scared of him, lol." She didn't speak this time. She just watched Linda return with Marcus, both wearing that tight, polite expression people use when pretending to be neutral. "Sir," Marcus said to Marcus, "here's what we're going to do. We need to seat all passengers. Once we're airborne and the cabin is stable, we can double-check the manifest." That word again. "Once we're airborne." Translation: "Give up now. Maybe we'll deal with you later." Marcus tilted his head slightly. "You want me to stand during takeoff?" Marcus blinked. No, sir. You can have any open seat in business until..." Richard laughed under his breath, loud enough to be a sound cue. "Business. There you go. That seems reasonable." A passenger across the aisle frowned at Richard. Another looked away awkwardly, wanting to intervene but unwilling to enter conflict. Marcus's folder slipped again as he shifted his footing, and the financial report slid an inch farther out, a colorful chart visible now, title clearly readable, Quarterly Strategic Investment Overview. Linda's gaze passed over it twice without stopping, like someone skimming past something their mind has already decided is irrelevant. Marcus gently placed the folder back under his arm. Careful, composed, the way one handles something valuable when the world insists it's disposable. "Please understand," Linda said softly. "We just need to get everyone settled. She gestured vaguely at Richard, is already seated. Moving you makes the process easier." "Easier for whom?" Marcus asked. Linda opened her mouth, but no sound came, because the answer was obvious. Marcus stepped in. "We're not questioning your sincerity, sir. It's just that the timing..." Marcus interrupted, but not sharply. "You have my boarding pass. You can verify this." Marcus looked down, then back up. "We don't have time to resolve seating disputes on the ground." The cabin pressure felt heavier. Marcus could almost feel the air condensing between his shoulder blades, pushing him backward toward the aisle where people of his skin tone and his quiet power were so often placed first in line to be doubted, last in line to be considered. Ava finally whispered to her live stream again. "He's asking them to verify facts. Literal facts. And they're brushing him off. Guys, this is something else." Comments scrolled like a slot machine. "They're protecting the rich guy. He's too calm for how badly they're treating him. I want receipts. Show the manifest." Marcus felt every eye in the cabin converging on him, not with hostility, but with an uncomfortable mixture of sympathy and helplessness. Witnesses caught between knowing better and doing nothing. He wasn't angry, not yet. He was tired, the kind of exhaustion that sinks into bone. The kind that comes from knowing the truth is in your hand, but the world prefers the wrong story. He looked at Linda. "I'm not trying to disrupt anything. I'm asking you to confirm what you already have access to." Linda pressed her lips together. "We can revisit this after takeoff. That's the safest procedure." Safety. The universal shield. The word that makes injustice sound responsible. Richard closed his eyes smugly, as if the matter were settled. Finally, The plane's engines thumped softly beneath their feet as ground crew finished loading. Another cabin chime. The countdown was not spoken this time, but felt. Everyone sensed the narrowing window. Marcus stayed still. A single thought passed through him. Not despair, not fury, but something quieter, deeper. The more polite I am, the more invisible I become. He let that truth settle. The cabin lights brightened to shade as the flight attendants finished their sweep. The brightness didn't lift the mood, it just exposed everything more clearly. The tension in bodies, the glances darting away from confrontation, the subtle tightening at the corners of mouths, pretending not to judge. Richard stretched, rolling his shoulders as if finally settling into what he believed he deserved. "This is getting ridiculous," he said loudly, making sure nearby passengers heard. "All this for an upgrade." Marcus didn't flinch. His folder, however, slid again under his arm. The equity partner crest half exposed, like a lighthouse, shining through fog no one wished to acknowledge. Linda stood stiffly by the front bulkhead, her tablet down at her side, as if she didn't trust it anymore. Marcus Hale folded his hands calmly, the practiced stance of a man who believed tone could outweigh truth. "Sir," Marcus said, choosing each word carefully, "I need you to take a seat for departure. We can sort out misunderstandings later." "There is no misunderstanding," Marcus replied. "You're escalating the situation," Marcus said gently. The gentleness stung deeper than a shout. Richard chuckled. "Son, you're embarrassing yourself. Let the adults handle the logistics." A few passengers inhaled sharply. Ava's camera jolted as she reacted, catching the exact moment Marcus's jaw tightened a tiny movement, almost imperceptible, but the kind that telegraphed a lifetime of practiced restraint. Her livestream commenters erupted. Did he just call him son? Bro, that's racist and sexist. Why is the crew letting this happen? This man is way too calm for what they're doing to him. The engines rumbled beneath the cabin deep, sustained vibration like a warning that the window for correction was closing. A flight attendant further down the aisle announced, "All passengers, please take your seats," as overhead bins shut in a rhythmic clacking. The world moved forward while Marcus was forced to stand still. Marcus shifted closer. "Look, sir, we are not questioning your integrity, but you're making this more difficult than it needs to be." "By asking you to verify what you already have in your system?" Marcus asked. Richard sighed dramatically. "There's your problem. Pride. Just accept the mix-up and sit in business. Nobody's judging you." Marcus looked at him steadily. "Everyone is judging me, including you." For the first time, Richard clicked his tongue in annoyance, as if Marcus had violated the script he had written for him. Linda stepped closer again. "Sir, please. We just want to resolve this peacefully." "Peacefully?" Marcus repeated, more to himself than to her. The words seemed to crumble in his mouth. He wasn't raising his voice. He wasn't moving aggressively. He was simply refusing to shrink. And still, he was framed as the disturbance. Ava stepped forward half a pace, not fully entering the conflict, but close enough for Marcus to sense her presence. Her voice trembled with contained outrage as she whispered, "Why is it peaceful only when he gives in?" The number in the corner of her screen surged. 18K, 19K, 20K. A swelling public witness. Yet inside the cabin, Marcus stood utterly alone. Linda reached out, not touching him, but extending a placating hand. "Sir, if you don't sit, the flight can't leave. Please, just cooperate." "Cooperate with what?" Marcus asked softly. The softness made Richard snort. "With reality," Richard said. Marcus blinked once, as though absorbing a blow. He swallowed it without letting his shoulders fall. "I am cooperating with reality," he said. "You're refusing to look at it." The folder slipped again. This time, the financial report fell forward pages fanned open to the section labeled Strategic Investment Holdings, Ellery Group Active Shares. The truth lay on the carpet at Richard's feet. He didn't bother to look down. A hush moved over the cabin, not silence, but a vacuum where dignity collided with prejudice, where composure cost Marcus more than noise ever could. Marcus exhaled, long and weary. "Sir, we cannot delay the flight any longer. I need you to move to business. Now." It was the closest he'd come to issuing an order. Ava's live stream exploded at that exact second. "This is the worst one I've seen. He's literally standing next to HIS seat. Manifest check takes 2 seconds. How is this okay?" Marcus felt 20,000 unseen eyes watching, hearing Richard's words echo down decades of a system built on the assumption that people like Richard told the truth and people like Marcus explained themselves. He closed his eyes for one breath, not to calm down, but to call something back inside himself, something heavy, old, and hard-earned. When he opened them, his voice was steady. "I am not moving." Richard sat up. "What did you just say?" Marcus repeated, quieter, stronger. "I am not moving." The cabin froze. The cabin door alarm chimed again. Sharper this time, an auditory warning that the aircraft was minutes from sealing itself off. The air vents hissed harder as the environmental system adjusted for departure, blowing a thin stream of cold air across Marcus's knuckles. He didn't move. Cabin manager Sophia entered with the efficiency of someone accustomed to crisis, just not this kind, not the moral kind. She carried a tablet with higher access than Linda's, a quiet symbol of institutional power. "What's happening here?" she asked, scanning the scene. Marcus spoke first, tone clipped. "Seat dispute. Passenger refuses reassignment." "Refuses?" Marcus repeated softly. Richard exhaled loudly, as if Marcus's humanity were an inconvenience. "He's obsessed with this seat. Just move him. We're closing." Sophia pressed a finger to her earpiece. "Cross-check begins in 2 minutes," the voice inside told her. She nodded once, then looked at Marcus. "Sir," she said, "for safety reasons, we need to clear the aisle and ensure everyone is seated in any available seat. We'll reevaluate once airborne." There it was, the institutional script. Cold, neutral, weaponized. Marcus kept his voice steady. "My assigned seat is here." Sophia exhaled through her nose, a subtle signal of irritation at him, not the billionaire taking up the space he paid for. "We cannot delay for individual disputes." "Individual?" Marcus asked. "It's factual. I'm asking for verification." Richard's chair creaked as he leaned forward. "He's trying to bully the staff. Deal with him." The accusation hit heavier than the words deserved because it fed into a stereotype everyone in the cabin could feel, but pretended not to see. Ava's live stream surged past 40K viewers. Her voice trembled into her mic. "They're calling him a problem? When he's the only one following procedure?" Her chat exploded. "This is systemic. She's not listening to him." "I want to scream." "Manifest check takes seconds." Sophia turned to Linda. "Did you check the lounge assignment?" Linda shook her head. "He," a nod at Richard, "said it was already confirmed." Sophia nodded, satisfied, as if that settled something. As if Richard's word was documentation. Marcus felt the old, familiar heaviness press into his ribs, the knowledge that some people's statements are treated as evidence, while his evidence was treated like noise. The engines boomed beneath them as ground crew finished sealing the cargo hold. The vibrations rolled up through the seat frame into Marcus's legs. "Sir," Sophia said, switching to a firmer tone, "if you don't take another seat, we won't be able to depart." "That's not accurate," Marcus replied. "You haven't verified the manifest." "It's too late for that now," she said. "Too late. Too late to check the truth, but not too late to enforce a lie. Richard smiled with the confidence of someone the world always paused for. "Let's wrap this up." End quote. "Let's wrap this up." A piece of paper slipped from Marcus's folder as he shifted weight, the strategic investment overview, pages fluttering onto the floor. The words, "Equity Holdings, Primary Ownership Structure," glinted under the cabin lights. No one bent to pick it up. Ava's camera caught it. Her viewers did too. What is that document? Is he an owner? Bro, the crew is ignoring it. Show the document. But inside the cabin, Sophia had already reset her posture and chosen sides. "We are at T-2 minutes, she said. "Sir, take a seat or we will have to escalate." "Escalate?" Marcus asked. "Against who? The person in the wrong seat or the person you're refusing to verify?" A silence fell over the cabin. Not agreement, not support, just discomfort dense enough to feel like humidity. Ava whispered, "He's so calm. Why is calmness treated like defiance?" The live stream jumped. 55, 60K, 70K. More eyes than cabin seats, more witnesses than the airline expected. But none of that existed for Sophia. Her world was procedure, hierarchy, optics. Nothing else penetrated. She stepped closer. "This is your final warning. Sit in business now." Richard straightened, satisfied, as if the system itself were his personal guardrail. Marcus looked at him, at Sophia, at the seat he rightfully owned, then down at the paper on the floor. His authority spilled, like a secret no one wanted to read. "Sir," Sophia repeated, "move, now." Marcus inhaled once, deep, cold, grounding. Not in defeat, in preparation. Everything is on the edge of a blade. The truth, lying on the floor, the system, standing against him, and the world outside watching. The cabin door emitted a final warning tone, one sharp, insistent chime that cut through the air like a blade. The sound was followed by the low metallic shudder of the jet bridge beginning its retraction sequence. Every passenger felt it. The point of no return. Gate agent Linda rushed back inside, breath quick, headset bouncing at her shoulder. "We're locking in 60 seconds, she announced to Sophia. "We must close now or lose our slot." Sophia nodded decisively, her expression tightening. "Then we resolve this now." Her gaze snapped to Marcus, not Richard. "Sir, last time. Move to business." Marcus stood perfectly still, hands relaxed at his sides, the very image of restraint. Only his eyes betrayed how much he had been holding back, how much pressure had been placed upon him in the span of 6 unbearable minutes. "I'm standing beside the seat assigned to me," he said quietly. Richard muttered, "God, this is exhausting." He leaned forward, performing frustration for the cabin. "Move. You're holding everyone hostage with your pride." Several passengers flinched at the accusation. A few exchanged looks, some sympathetic, others uncomfortable, others complicit through silence. The engines deepened to a steady growl. The cabin lights shifted from bright boarding white to the softer amber tone used for takeoff readiness. The shift made everything feel quieter, heavier, like the air itself was bracing. Ava's livestream ticked past 80,000 viewers. She whispered urgently into her mic. "They're going to close the door with a man out of his rightful seat. Chat, this is wild. Look at that document on the floor. Look at it." Her viewers spammed. "He's an owner? Crew is ignoring the literal paperwork. Do not close that door. Where's the manager?" This is systemic bias in real time. A man in row 2 finally spoke up. "Why can't you just check the manifest? It would take 10 seconds. Sophia's jaw flexed. "Sir, we cannot delay departure. Procedures." "Procedures," the man repeated, disbelief sharpening his tone. "Your procedure is to ignore the person with the actual boarding pass?" The tension snapped across the cabin like static. For the first time, Sophia looked uncertain. Richard scoffed loudly. "You're all overreacting. He's trying to scam his way into first class. It happens." A woman in row 1 turned her head sharply. "He hasn't raised his voice once. Meanwhile, you've been barking orders since you sat down." Marcus said nothing. He didn't need to. The contradiction was becoming unbearable, even for the bystanders. Sophia pressed her earpiece again. "Door team, confirm lock." A voice crackled back. "Standing by. Jet bridge fully retracted in 40 seconds. 40 seconds. Ava's breath hitched. She stepped forward, not enough to break protocol, but close enough that her voice carried. "This is morally wrong," she said softly, but the softness made the words travel farther. All he asked for was verification. "Why are you afraid of the truth?" Richard glared at her. "Mind your business." Ava lifted her camera, no longer pretending to hide it. "It is my business. This is a public flight, and the public is watching." The viewer count surged again, 90K, 100K, climbing with a momentum that felt dangerous to the airline. Linda's tablet buzzed. She glanced down at the screen, and her face drained of color. A warning from HQ? A PR alert triggered by trending traffic? Marcus couldn't see, but he recognized the look. Institutional fear dawning. Sophia noticed Linda's reaction. "What is it?" Linda swallowed. We're trending, right now." Richard scoffed. "Oh, please. People post everything online." But his posture stiffened. His eyes flicked to Ava's camera, then away. Marcus remained still, unmoving, steady. A man who could break, but refused to. Sophia stepped closer, lowering her voice as if volume equaled control. "Sir, this is your final opportunity to comply." Marcus didn't blink. Comply with what? The truth being ignored? The question hit harder than a shout. It was too reasonable, too calm, too unshakable. The cabin seemed to tilt toward him. A final chime pierced the moment door lock imminent. Ava whispered, "If they lock that door now, they're complicit. All of them." Another passenger said loudly, "Check the damn manifest! You're humiliating the wrong man." For the first time, Richard looked rattled. Just a flicker, but unmistakable. Sophia raised her hand to the door team and froze. The cabin seemed to hold its breath. Sophia's hand hovered in midair, inches from signaling the door lock. That tiny gesture, so small, so procedural, felt like the hinge on which the entire moral weight of the moment balanced. Then Ava stepped forward. Not timidly, not halfway. She moved with the clarity of someone who has watched enough injustice to recognize the exact second silence becomes complicity. Her voice cut through the cabin. He showed his pass. You ignored him. Check the manifest now. The words didn't echo. They detonated. A murmur spread across the first 2 rows like a shockwave. Passengers stiffened, turning toward the confrontation. Sophia's hand faltered. Richard barked a laugh, brittle at the edges. "Oh, please. Stay out of this. You don't know how airline procedures work." But his voice cracked, just slightly. Ava raised her camera higher. Steady. No longer pretending discretion. "This is not procedure. This is prejudice. And 100,000 people are watching this live." Linda gasped. 100? What? Her tablet vibrated violently, with notifications. A man in row 2 stood halfway, gripping his armrest. "Are you seriously removing a black executive from his seat because a billionaire said so?" Richard pointed at him. "You don't know anything about him." The man fired back. "Neither do you. But you assumed anyway." Gasps fluttered through the cabin like wings. The floor rumble of the engines intensified as the jet bridge fully disconnected, a final shudder running through the fuselage. Every vibration amplified the stakes. Marcus remained still. the eye of the storm breathing evenly, eyes level, hands steady. But exhaustion dragged at his posture, a lifetime of restraint condensed into this single claustrophobic aisle. Ava gestured to the document on the floor. "Look, that paper literally says equity holdings. Why has no one even bent down to read it?" Passengers craned their necks. A woman whispered, "Is he an owner?" "He said to check the manifest," someone else added. Sophia stiffened. "Everyone calm down. This is not—" "It is exactly what it looks like," Ava said. "You ignored him. You believed the white billionaire. You dismissed his boarding pass. And you refused to check the system that takes seconds to open." Richard raised his chin, performing anger he hoped would intimidate. "You have no authority here. Do you know who I am?" Ava didn't flinch. "We all do," she said. "And we're watching who you really are." The line cracked something open. Richard surged up from the seat, red with outrage. "This entire plane is being delayed because of him." He jabbed a finger at Marcus. And that was the breaking point. A woman in row 1 snapped, "Sit down. You stole his seat." Another passenger added, "Stop yelling at him. He hasn't even raised his voice." Comments poured into Ava's stream faster than her screen could load. "Read the manifest. Read the—" Richard is done. Systemic bias on camera. Airline is going to get sued. Sophia looked between the crowd, the camera, the paperwork, and Marcus. Fear not of Marcus, but of consequence, finally reached her. Authority slipped from her hands. She whispered to Linda, "We can't lock the door like this. Run the manifest. Now." Linda's fingers trembled as she pulled up the secure menu, the crew-only access list. The cabin held a collective inhale. Marcus didn't move. Richard clenched his fists. The passengers leaned forward. Ava steadied her camera. The engines hummed like a heartbeat. Then Linda froze. Her eyes widened. She looked up at Marcus, then at the document on the floor, then at Richard Slowe, dawning recognition in her face. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Oh my God." Linda's tablet trembled in her grip. She didn't speak at first. She couldn't. The manifest page stared back at her with unarguable clarity. Ellery, Marcus, equity, owner, strategic investor, priority access, level 0. A title higher than any frequent flyer tier, higher than Richard's platinum black gold stamped profile, higher than anyone else on that aircraft. The cabin went impossibly still. Ava lowered her camera a fraction, whispering, "Oh my God, chat, he's an owner." A tidal wave of comments surged. Even Richard went silent. Sophia reached for the tablet, her professional facade cracking as she read the line once, twice, blinking hard, as though the words were dissolving the version of events she had anchored herself to. Marcus didn't move. He didn't even react. He simply watched the truth rise to the surface, finally visible, finally undeniable, but carrying no triumph on his face. He just looked tired. Linda swallowed. "Sir, Mr. Ellery, I didn't know." Richard flinched at the name recognition, dawning slow, painful. "Ellery?" he repeated. "As in, Ellery Group?" Marcus finally looked at him. Richard blinked rapidly, as though seeing Marcus for the first time without the filter of his own assumptions. His voice wavered. "My father. He tried to start a company once." The cabin shifted, passengers leaning in. Richard's voice dropped lower. "They denied him entry into the business lounge because he didn't look like a premium customer. He never forgot it." He looked away, jaw tight. "It stuck with me," Richard said, a confession shoved out of him by the weight of the moment. "I swore nobody would ever treat me like he was treated. So I took space everywhere." Marcus inhaled slowly. "This isn't taking space," he said quietly. "This is erasing someone else's." The line didn't cut, it landed like truth gently placed on a table. Richard's shoulders fell. For the first time since the confrontation began, the man looked small. "I thought you were just—" He stopped, shame cutting the sentence short. He didn't finish with black, or poor, or not first class, but the unfinished word hovered in the silence. Marcus didn't force him to say it. He simply looked down at the document on the floor, the spilled truth, the overlooked authority, and then knelt to pick it up himself. Passengers winced. No one should have to pick up proof of their own legitimacy from the carpet. As Marcus rose, the page in his hand, Richard's voice cracked again. "You didn't correct me." "Not once." "Why?" Marcus met his eyes. "Because men like me don't get to correct men like you without consequences." The line hit harder than any accusation. Richard's breath hitched. He rubbed his forehead, shaken not by anger this time, but by recognition, by the collapse of the narrative he had relied on for decades. Ava lowered her camera completely. The cabin seemed to exhale as one. Marcus Hale looked down, shame painting lines across his face. Linda's eyes glistened with a realization that came too late to erase the damage. Sophia opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time, she had no script, no procedure, no shield, just truth. Marcus stepped back toward his seat, not victorious, not vindictive, but steady. The storm has passed. The reckoning is next. A soft chime pulsed through the cabin, no longer sharp, no longer urgent. A tone of transition. Sophia lowered Linda's tablet slowly, like someone placing a fragile truth on an altar. Her voice, when it finally came, was thin around the edges. "Mr. Ellery, we owe you an apology." Marcus didn't look triumphant. He simply nodded once, a gesture that neither accepted nor dismissed, just acknowledged the overdue shift in gravity. Before anyone could speak again, Linda's headset buzzed violently. She flinched, then pressed a finger to her earpiece. Yes, speaking. A pause. Another. Her face paled. She turned to Sophia. "Operations says to halt door closure. They're initiating an immediate review. We're to document the incident in full before departure." A ripple went through the cabin, not shock, not outrage, but the quiet realization of accountability finally landing. Richard sank slowly into the seat he had stolen, hands limp over the armrests. He wasn't posturing now. No arrogance, no smirk, just a hollow awareness swallowing him whole. "Mr. Cavendish," Sophia said with formal chill, "you need to vacate this seat. Now." He swallowed. Twice. Then stood unsteady. Passengers watched him, not with hatred, but with that uncomfortable morality that comes from seeing someone stripped of the illusions they use to justify themselves. He stepped aside. Marcus moved toward his seat with the quiet certainty of someone returning home, not claiming victory, just claiming what had always been his. As he sat, he carefully placed the strategic investment overview back into his folder, smoothing the page that had lain on the floor. He slid the equity partner card into the inside pocket where it belonged, where it never should have needed to come out. Ava lowered her camera out of respect. Her live stream paused at a still image, Marcus settling into his rightful seat, framed by warm cabin light. Her voice trembled with something softer. "Chat." He never raised his voice. Not once. The comments slowed from outrage to something gentler. "This is dignity. This is how justice should feel. I hope they learn from him." Sophia approached Marcus, hesitating before speaking. "We failed you. I failed you." He looked up at her, expression unreadable, but not cold. "Thank you for seeing it," he said quietly. She bowed her head, a gesture not of subservience, but of recognition. Richard hovered in the aisle, unsure where to stand. Guilt, real human guilt, etched lines into his face. "Marcus," he said softly, "I didn't know." Marcus studied him for a long moment. "I know," he replied, "and there was no forgiveness in it. But no hatred either. Just truth." The engines hummed steadily beneath them, the aircraft waiting patiently as if the plane itself understood that departure could not happen until dignity had been restored. Sophia straightened. "We'll reseat you, Mr. Cavendish, and we'll document everything." Richard nodded, chastened. As the cabin settled, Marcus leaned back, exhaling for the first time since the ordeal began. The air felt different now, lighter, but with a weight of lessons suspended inside it. Ava captured one final shot, not of the conflict, not of the drama, but of Marcus's hand resting atop his folder, the motif complete. In the quiet, Marcus whispered to himself, barely audible, "Authority was always here. I just stopped hiding it." Quote. The echo line sealed the story like a door closing gently behind a long, dark hallway. Justice, quiet and earned, carried the aircraft forward. How did this moment land for you, the calm, the truth, the justice finally unfolding? Share your thoughts below. I read every comment. If this story moved you, tap like, send it to someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you can be here for the next journey. Your voice shapes these stories. Thank you for riding along.